using food as a comfort to the way I dealt with the trauma from my childhood.
Welcome to Bari Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Well, I think it's only appropriate that we do start off with this again.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Hey, we had to, you know.
There'll be kids jingle belling and everyone shelling. They'll be of good cheer.
Okay. You're welcome, guys. You are welcome. That is a leader in full orchestra. What has happened this week since the last podcast that we did? What is new?
Beer at daybreak. We did another trail run.
I know, just another trail run. Yeah, they're always good. They're always fun. It was a hard one, though.
It was, but I managed to stay upright.
Yeah. That's always an accomplishment for a leader. I literally saw you come over the finish line and I looked at your face to see if there was any dirt or any mud or any rocks or any new blood marks that I hadn't seen before you left. And it was actually a tough one compared to what we did at Blackall. So I was quite impressed that you actually stayed upright on that one.
Shorter distances, but different terrain and so much hotter.
So much hotter.
Yeah.
It was actually, I had a moment too over the last couple of days because I found myself getting out of that event and kind of, feeling down a little bit about how I performed at the event. And I realized that, me being me and hyperanalyzing myself, that I've obviously transitioned from my addiction being to the scales, where I was always like competitive against the scales and wanted to move down to now being, self-improvement in the way of being more of an athlete. And I was thinking about it today. It's a good and a bad thing, I feel, because it's a good thing in the way of, I'll never fully accomplish, like you can hit a goal weight. I don't think you can ever fully accomplish being, the fittest you can be.
Yeah.
But on the negative downside, and something I need to constantly remind myself of, is you need to remember to, think about, back to when you first started it. So you keep that motivation, because otherwise
so you appreciate where you are at the moment.
Yeah, because I didn't have the best headspace moment on the race. I just went into it not really with the best training, the best mindset, and I didn't perform how I kind of wanted to. And then I kind of was like, in two minds about it, and then I had to really take a step back and I'd be like, no, you ran 21Ks in blistering hot heat. You need to take accomplishment away from this, because I feel like sometimes we can get lost in
But that is the accomplishment, that you ran 21Ks in 35 degrees heat.
Yeah, but you know what it's like. You can sometimes compare your today to yesterday rather than your 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, you ran 21 kilometres on a road in an hour 26, whereas on the weekend you ran it in 2 hours and 4 minutes or something
even
like that.
Blackall, I think my first 21Ks at Blackall was faster than I did, and that I started overthinking, and I needed to just be like, Shannon, snap out of it, appreciate what you did and not what you didn't do.
Which I did the complete opposite. I went into the race on Sunday thinking, I want to do 10 kilometres in under 2 hours. That was my goal. In the back of my head, I sort of thought, an hour 40, because that's what I did in the training run. And I was a little girl in the training run. I walked a lot of it. I complained the whole time.
You're a little girl.
But in the middle, me never. But in the middle of in race mode, I was like, okay, come on, you can do it in an hour 40.
Yeah.
But I am the complete opposite to you. I underestimate myself. So I go in with a target of an hour 40, and I actually did it in an hour 30 because I don't understand how much I can actually achieve.
Well, it is one of those things too, because I talked to Zash about this today actually, because I had a bit of a talk to her about it, and I said it's hard because the fitter you get, the harder it is to accomplish. So when I was in my early stages, it was so easy to, find something to be accomplished about. And now I'm getting to a point now where I have to work really hard to get the smallest amount of accomplishment. So it does make it a little bit harder to, look for those moments of celebration. But if you reflect on a later date rather than yesterday, you're going to find the accomplishment a lot easier. But
we should probably put this in the bag because we've got to leave something for us to talk about in that episode, the last episode of the year. So.
I thought you were therapying me.
No, I'm not a therapist. But actually, good segue, because our guest today is actually a psychologist.
Yeah. So, what are the chances?
Our guest today had her gastric sleeve back in January of 2019. Her heaviest recorded weight was 122 kilos, and almost 2 years later, she's lost about 60 kilos and is enjoying the learning curve that comes with weight loss surgery. Our guest this afternoon is Anna, also known as a Sleeved Psych on Instagram. Hi, Anna.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, well,
And
thank
I
you.
wanted to sing along to the Christmas chant of earlier.
Well, if you find the moment throughout the podcast, you just want to break into song, don't let us hold you back,
Yeah.
right? Don't let us hold you back. I know it's very Christmassy. It gets you in the feels. What kind of psychologist are you? What do you
So
specialize in?
I'm a counselling psych, so I specialise in addiction and trauma.
Oh, wow. Okay. Addiction and trauma. Oh, well, here I am talking about my new addictions. And I'm like, and she's like, well, you're a typical case of just being messed in the head. Oh, that's awesome. So with you, we actually wanted to try something a little bit different and go deeper. We want to know, because you are a psychologist, you understand how, usually patterns form throughout your history and, you get to a certain place through things that happened over your time. So I think, rather than just going back to just before surgery and all that, I thought we would go deep. So with you, who were you at school? Like if you had to put yourself in a category of a group at school, where would you have put yourself?
I probably don't have too much recollection of primary school to be able to tell you that. But in terms of high school, I think I was that person that was friends with lots of different groups. Like I wasn't in the super popular group, and I wasn't, in that sort of crowd. Yep. But I really enjoyed talking to everyone. And I think something that I remember from high school is I would always make an effort to talk to the kids that maybe weren't as outgoing or as, in the popular groups. And I'd like to make friends with everyone and just be sort of like that friendly, approachable face, which has probably led me to my career down the track. But I think that's who I was in high school in terms of personality. I was always fairly social and outgoing. Even though I had a lot of sort of internal stuff going on, I masked that a lot. So I'd always probably overcompensate by talking a lot.
Yeah.
Again, leading to my job. It all makes sense these days. But yeah, I think that's probably who I was in high school.
So you didn't have to struggle too much with the whole, popular versus unpopular. You didn't feel like, you had people, that you wanted to inspire to be at school?
Yeah, no, I think one thing I never really worried too much about in high school was that I wanted to be like someone else. And to be honest, I really credit that to the people that the group that I would hang around with the most. I went to a girls' school, and I know that, other friends of mine and my sister who went to the same school struggled with bullying and cattiness and, just some of the stereotypes that might happen in girls' schools. But I think I was just really lucky in my year level that the girls, that I was surrounded with were always really supportive. We were all from really different cultural backgrounds and different levels of, what we wanted to focus on or what career we wanted. Like we were all super diverse.
Yep.
But everyone was really supportive of each other, which I think was really nice. And I credit that for me going into my adulthood and, being 18 plus, going into uni and dealing with a lot of other issues, that sort of stabilised me and gave me a little bit of a clear head because I didn't come from a school environment that was really problematic. Whilst I had issues outside of school, I felt that I was really lucky with the friendship group that I had, and even till this day still keep in touch with a lot of my girlfriends from high school, and I just have lovely sort of memories from high school, which I know for a lot of people isn't the case. I think I was really lucky to have that group.
Yeah.
Were you overweight at high school as well, or were you sort of not quite at that stage yet?
Yeah, so I started, I was a little heavier. Funny when I look back now, I think, Anna, you were crazy to think you were heavier back then. But I think I started to get heavier in like year 11 and year 12. But it wasn't until sort of 18 plus when I really, so most of my adult life, where I significantly put on like a significant amount of weight. Mm-hmm. So I probably would have been like, I have this couple of small memories of being in year 12 and getting on the scales in biology class for whatever reason, and the number was 68, and I thought that was really heavy at the time. And then I have another small memory of being maybe 18 or 19, maybe 18, being at a girlfriend's house in her bathroom, stepping on the scales, and it had said 77. And by the time I was 18, I was diagnosed with borderline polycystic ovarian syndrome, which messed up all my hormones and that sort of stuff. And I had to go on medication to treat that. And at that stage, pre-medication, I remember going to a gym to try and lose weight because that would help with the diagnosis. And at that stage, I was 88. So over a period of a couple of small years, there was a 20 kilo weight gain. And obviously that was still much lower than what my highest weight was. So over the next, what am I now? I'm 34. So over the next 15 odd years, I sort of went up and down, another sort of 40 plus kilos or so.
If you don't mind me asking, you said just before outside of school, so like in school you had a pretty good, foundation.
Yeah.
But outside of school, you mind asking what the issues were outside of school that you're having to deal with?
Yeah, so without, I guess, disclosing too much detail, I had a fairly problematic upbringing. So my mum, there's three children in my biological family. So I'm the oldest, then there's my sister and my brother. And my biological father, we had a significant there's a lot of trauma embedded in my upbringing. So my biological father, there was a lot of violence in our household. So that impacted my sister and I in a really significant way as adults, both with mental health and weight gain and weight issues. So I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later, but essentially I tie a lot of my binge eating and using food as a comfort to the way I dealt with the trauma from my childhood. So I was grew up, whilst my biological father was out of my life by the time I was around 12, and my stepfather came in at 14, and he's just a blessing. He changed our lives completely. Going through high school as a young person, trying to process all of that stuff that had happened to me as a child and in primary school really played a role in my family relationships, like my relationship with my mum, my relationship with my sister. That was really impacted at that time, I think, because of that.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like you always take it, when you're saying that, it's very similar to my whole story as well, when you're talking about that. And it's a conversation I have a lot with a lot of different people, mainly women as well, where, we talk about what kind of led them to the weight gain. It's usually a case of, they go to the weight and the relationship with weight because they want to be less desirable to men for certain reasons, or, it gives them like a bond to food because it's one thing in their life they can control.
That's right.
Yeah, so in the weight loss community, it's a very common story that seems to, come up a lot. And that's kind of why I asked a little bit, because I did want to see whether, that was the same case for you. It's unfortunate it is part of society, and it is, something people in this weight loss community are dealing with, especially females.
So do you think that your weight gain sort of started from like you were turning to food as like an emotional sort of release, or do you think it sort of stemmed from you having to deal mentally with like the things that were happening throughout your life?
Yeah, so it's interesting now as you're saying it, I'm reflecting on when I was younger. So say once my dad sort of exited my life and I was in those sort of younger 13, 14, 15, I still used food as a way to control because I did feel like that was the only thing I could control in my life at the time. So back then it was more about starving myself, forcing myself to vomit when I'd eat. And that was the only sort of way that I felt that I could control. And then later in life that flipped and went into food as a comfort. Food is a way to deal with the emotions, to suppress them, to ignore them. It was a way to deal with that as well as, the sort of emotional turmoil that was going on in my head of trying to become an adult and not really having experienced a healthy or fruitful childhood, and trying to work out who I was and not allowing that past to define me, and not allowing that past to impact what I was capable of. So it was in those sort of really, those years of high school and being a teenager where you're really trying to work out who the hell you are and, just trying to work out, what type of adult did I want to be? And, I had this thing in my head from when I was about 16 that I just wanted to help people. And I didn't know what that looked like, but I never wanted anybody to feel like I did, and I never wanted anybody to feel like they couldn't talk to someone, or they had to hide, or they couldn't talk about how they were feeling. So that's sort of, whilst at that time I didn't recognise that was, I wanted to be a psychologist, it was just, that's what led me in that sort of direction.
Yeah, you want to be that person for someone to be able to talk to.
Off track, but definitely it was a mix of, you know, dealing with anxiety, dealing with sort of, you know, almost a post-traumatic stress, dealing with probably, you know, now that I reflect the startings of, you know, eating disorder type ways of coping with significant emotional distress.
It's funny that you talk about reflecting, because I've never really thought about it. You must be really good at your job, because I'm starting to think back to my childhood now. But, like, I remember when I, like, thinking about it now.
Do you want to lay on the couch?
Yeah, can we bring a couch in here so that I can just, like, let it all out? We'll call it Bari Psychologist instead of Bari Banter. But no, I was just thinking, like, because when I was younger, when I was about 10, my dad went through bowel cancer, and we almost lost him to bowel cancer. So my way of dealing with my emotions through that was to eat. Like, I was an emotional eater, and then he ended up coming through that, and that was all fine and good, and we've still got my dad today, thank goodness. But then my mum and dad, without going into too much, they sort of went through a bit of a separation when I was about 13, 14, and dad actually moved out. And my way of rebelling was then, because, you know, I was getting pocket money and stuff like that, and anything that my parents told me to do, I would do the opposite of. So mum was trying to teach me this way of, you know, eating healthy and balanced diet. So anytime I got my pocket money, I'd go straight down to the shops and I'd buy a bag of Allen's lollies, and I'd shove the whole bag in my face and I would eat it. So I've gone through the motions of, like, an emotional eater, a binge eater, like a rebellious eater. Like,
I feel like the rebellious maybe fell in your teenage years, where it's kind of like, you usually rebel.
And then alcohol comes into play.
All that fun stuff.
And exactly what I was going to say. It's really interesting, isn't it, when we look back on those years and how we dealt with even, just parents being parents and saying you can't do this or you can't do that, or trying to teach us, you know, values or whatever they thought was important for us at that time. And as young people, it's almost natural that we want to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You know, and my mum, I have really, like, a couple of clear memories of my mum saying, do you want to go to, you know, family counselling, or do you want to talk to someone about your feelings, because you're not talking to me, but I know things are going on for you, but you're pretending that everything's okay. And obviously with what you went through, Anna, you're probably not okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, no, I don't need any help. I don't need to talk to you. You can't help me. No one can help me, you know. And then, but instead I would manage that obviously in what I would now look at as, you know, unhealthy ways of coping, you know, or unhelpful, I guess.
No,
less helpful.
Totally. And when you bottle stuff up, and that was the thing, like, a lot of stuff that happened to me when I was a child, I've only just recently told my mum and my sister about, because I didn't want to tell it for certain reasons, you know, demasculating reasons and stuff like that. And, you know, it's surprising how much those emotions play on your inner thoughts, even when you think you're on top of it. So it's very therapeutic to get it out. And, you know, I found since I got it out, it's almost like a weight was lifted, a mental weight as well. You know, and it's just about talking and letting people know where you're at so they can actually help you. Did you date much, like, with men and boys, and, you know, throughout your teenage and adult years?
Yeah. So when I was, like, as a sort of older teenager, like probably from about like 16 to 18 or so, I had a few, you know, boyfriends, and I was involved quite a lot in, like, underage nightclubs and that sort of thing. I was very...
You went through the rebellious stage.
I definitely went through the rebellious stage, and I definitely, as a young person, you know, turned to alcohol as a way to just ignore different things, not to a point where I would call it, you know, a dependency or anything like that. It was definitely like a binge drinking, just a way to, you know, escape from reality at times, you know, and I'm sure, as most other people do, you know, lying to my parents about where I'm going or what I'm doing so that I can undertake these activities. But I think one thing that I think back on, whilst I had a few boyfriends and that sort of thing, one thing I held really close was, for me, that respect for my body and not wanting people to sort of come too close to my body. And now as an adult, I've worked through why that was, and I think it was because I didn't have a lot of control over how my body was touched as a child in that sort of violent manner. I was really cautious about how I let people get close to me. So I think as I look back, it could have gone two ways with men. I could have been really looking at men as a way to soothe or as an acceptance, to be accepted by men, because I had that issue, I guess, with not having that sort of love and affection from my biological father. But I went the other way, which was, I don't want anybody to touch me, or I want to be empowered, and I want to make sure that people are coming into my life are really, I'm really sure about them before I really let them in. So whilst I had boyfriends and I was, going out and doing that sort of stuff, I was never really thinking too seriously about anything until I met my ex-husband. I met my ex-husband when I was 19. And we were together for almost 14 years. Wow. So in between, I haven't had obviously a major dating history.
No.
Because by the time I was an adult, I met my future husband, and we were together, as I said, for that long part of my life. And we separated last year. So we've been separated for just over 12 months now. So that was sort of relationship-wise, that was very stable for a long time.
And so you've got a boyfriend now, is that, since that, obviously since you separated from your partner, that's in the last 12 months?
Yeah.
So that's
pretty
fairly new.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's new but not new, which is pretty funny. I think when you think that you're completely not going to go, like for me, I had the mindset after my relationship ended that I didn't want, I wasn't even interested in dating. I wasn't looking at anyone. I wasn't on any apps or anything like that. And my current partner, Marcello, just sort of happened. And I know people say that and it sounds a bit funny, but I met him through work a few months after splitting from my husband. So we've been together about 9 odd months now. And COVID sort of pushed, it gave us a chance to, it sort of fast-tracked our relationship in a way. And I think it was a good test to sort of see whether this was actually a real thing and whether we were going to sort of sink or swim. But we live together now. So despite all of my plans to not stay and be super independent for 12 months and just learn who I am again and all that sort of stuff, that didn't quite go to plan. But it's all positive, which is great.
Yeah, good on COVID.
Do you mind us bringing up a bit about your ex-partner? Is that okay? Because I just wanted to ask you about, how did he take the idea of you having surgery? Was he on board with it, and how did he feel about you going down the road of having weight loss surgery?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it was, I had, just to give you a bit of context to what led up to weight loss surgery as well, as I said, most of my adult life, I would sort of, put on and then lose. And I was in this vicious cycle of my weight and the scale controlled my life and calories controlled my life. And I would go from super restrictive, diet, lose 20, 25 kilos, and then I'd just give up and put it all back on and binge and then I'd go through this cycle. I tried every possible weight loss thing that you could think of, whether it was paid programs, light and easy, U-Foods, all that sort of stuff, Weight Watchers, every
HCT
online,
drops under your tongue.
I'm telling you, the drops I had them. I did cabbage soup diet. I did smoothie diets. I did, I got, medication from the doctor, Duramine or Duramine, however you pronounce it. I'd seen dietitians. I'd, been that person that was at the gym 6 or 7, days a week. I'd literally done everything, bought every workout program online, every diet, every cookbook, everything. I felt like I had exhausted every option, and every single time I would stick to it for a period of time, and then it would feel way too much and way too overwhelming. And now I reflect back and know that the reason why those things didn't work in the long term was, one, they were too restrictive for me, and two, I wasn't addressing the underlying issues at play, which were leading to the issues with food in the first place. I would have never admitted 5 years ago that I had an addiction with food, and I used food as a way to self-soothe and comfort. So eventually I got to a point, the last 12 months prior to surgery, I went about my weight loss in a completely different way to how I'd done in the past. I showed myself a lot of compassion. I was really well balanced. I would eat super healthy during the week, and then I would have cheat days on the weekend. That felt really comfortable. I didn't count calories. I just paid attention to nourishing my body. And I lost about 25 kilos in that first year without doing any sort of significant exercise regime. I went to Pilates and did some walking, but that was it. I didn't want to feel like the scale or weight loss, losing weight was controlling my life. So I went about it in a much more calm and collected fashion. And then I'd been thinking about surgery, so I did some research, spoke to a couple of surgeons, went to see my surgeons at Cabrini in Victoria. Met him, thought he was really great and down to earth, and literally I met with him in November and I booked in for the surgery on February 5th.
Oh, wow. So it was a quick process for you.
Yeah, it was quick, and that was only because he was going away for Christmas leave. And he said, I can see you on Christmas Eve if you like,
Wow.
or we can do it my first day back. You can be my first person on my first day back on the 5th of Feb. And in my head, I was saying, you know what, Anna, eat whatever you want over Christmas and then get into surgery.
Yeah.
So to go back to your question, sorry, I'd spoken to my partner about it at the time, and I'd said, I really feel like this is what I need to do for me. You know, I have exhausted every other option. I feel exhausted and overwhelmed with my weight controlling my life. I want to feel healthy. I don't want everything to feel hard anymore. And I felt like weight loss surgery was a way for me to get that under control, but also give me the space that I needed to address the underlying issues that were going on. And I felt like surgery would give me the space to be able to do that. So he was supportive of that. You know, initially he was like, are you sure you need to do that? Why can't you just keep dieting as you're doing? You know, you're losing weight. So, you know, why do you think surgery is the way to go? But he wasn't saying that in a way that he didn't want me to do it. When I said, look, I feel like this is my last chance. Like, this is what I need to do. He said, you know, I back you all the way. And obviously I didn't have private health insurance that I paid for my surgery up front, and he was completely supportive of that financial investment as well. And yeah, he came along for the ride. You know, post-surgery, you know, there were things that came to fruition. You know, obviously with, I know there's a stat out there that says something like 50% of people that have weight loss surgery. Yeah.
Within the first 10 years.
I was going to say that before. You've become one of the statistics, unfortunately.
We're in the same statistic together. It's fine. We're in the same statistic together.
Yeah, I've become a statistic in saying that, you know, the issues were well and truly present, and we'd had significant issues in our marriage for a couple of years prior to that. But post-surgery and me, I guess, really focusing on me and what was important to me and what were my values and what did I want to prioritize, that's when it became much clearer to me that I wasn't living my life authentically, and I was at a point where I was doing things just to please everybody else. You know, and it wasn't until my weight loss surgery when I was able to have that sort of mental space to do some healing that I had to make some really tough decisions about where my life was going and what my future looked like. So weight loss was one side effect, I guess, of the weight loss surgery, but definitely my own personal healing and learning to love myself for who I am and be comfortable in my own skin, not skin as in weight, just who I am as a person and what I value and what's important to me. That's what the real transformation that happened over the last almost 2 years now.
So because we're obviously statistic friends, you know, because we're both part of that marriage statistic, and I actually did a post about it the other day, and a lot of people seem to assume that, you know, marriages don't last because of the appearance factor. You know, you lose the weight, you get the confidence, you leave. But as I was trying to say to a lot of people in my case, and I assume by the sounds of it in your case, it's to do more with, you know, you realizing the cracks more than, you know, the actual physical side of things. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting now because when I left, like, it's really interesting, and I'm sure, you know, you might have experienced some of this as well, Shan, like, people have questions for you when the marriage ends, especially after you've had weight loss surgery. I find that when I've spoken to people, this seems to be common. But I had people saying to me, like people that had been in my life for a long time that knew the reasons why I'd had this weight loss surgery, and would say, you know, is the reason you've ended your marriage now just because you got skinny? I was like, one, I wouldn't even call myself skinny, but two, why would a number on a scale dictate whether I stay with my husband or not? You know, if I love him and I care for him and we have a strong relationship and foundation, that has nothing to do with it. Yeah. You know, so it was really interesting to get those sorts of questions. And what was interesting is, you know, I didn't go through the first 12 months of post-weight loss surgery feeling super confident either. You know, it was such a massive journey and transformation, and it's scary. You know, there's a lot of new stuff to learn. There's a lot of challenges post-weight loss surgery that you need to adjust to with food and all that sort of stuff, and the psychological impacts of not being able to eat as much as you could. So I wasn't one of those, you know, I didn't have that experience of feeling like I was super hot and could go out there and, you know, just pick up and, you know, I don't know. It was just really different for me. Leaving my husband was straight up the hardest thing I've had to do as an adult.
Especially
you know,
after 14 years. Yeah.
It was so scary. I had no idea what my life was going to look like. I had no idea of where this was going to go. I was afraid that 3 months would pass and I would, you know, have thought that I'd made a mistake. You know, I was questioning so many things in my life. So definitely it wasn't because I felt super confident. You know, it was just me deciding that this was the time, it was now or never for me to put myself first and focus on what is my version of happiness and feeling fulfilled and my cup being full, and what values did I want to prioritize. And that's really what drove me to make that decision.
Yeah,
it's funny you talk about that, because Shannon and I have actually been talking about that a lot recently too, that like so many people stay in relationships because they feel like not stuck, but they feel secure, but they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And I was sort of in that position as well. So I separated with my boyfriend, or my partner at the time. We weren't married, but we'd been together for 4 years. And I decided, you know, I was about 6 months post-surgery and I left my partner. We were right in the middle of buying a house together, and I had 5 days cooling off of buying a house with him. And within that 5 days, I just said, you know what, it's I can't do this. I can't be locked down with you forever now. Part of the reason why I was so scared about leaving him was because, like, you know, back in the day when I was with him, I thought that this was as good as it was going to get. You know, he was the kind of person that I had a pair of size 14 short shorts, and it was my dream to be able to wear short shorts. And now I don't wear anything else except short shorts. But like, it was my dream to wear these shorts, and I'd put them on one day and they just did up, and I'd go out into the living room and I'd be like, look, they fit me. And he was kind of like, yeah, but they look ridiculous on you. Why would you leave the house wearing them? Like, that was the sort of person that he was. Yeah. So like I copped the whole, you lost weight and you got hot, so you left him. And I was like, well, hang on, no. I don't consider myself to have left him because I lost weight and I got hot, because I still don't comprehend that. Same as what you said, you don't think that you're skinny, that sort of thing. But what it was is that I developed self-worth. Like, and I realized that what the relationship that I was in, and even though it sucked, because I said to my girlfriends, I was like, I can't break up with him. I'm 30 years old. I can't move back in with my parents. I can't do that. Like, I've got nowhere to go. Yeah. And it wasn't until some of my friends were like, just move in with me. Like, we'll help you out. Like, you need to get out of this situation. But it took me that amount of time to actually realize that, you know, for the last 2 years, I haven't been in a good relationship, and I've just been settling and coping with it. But it's because I have lost the weight. Yeah, I lost the weight, and I started getting confidence in myself, and I started realizing what I wanted out of a partner. It wasn't because I lost weight and got skinny. It was because I lost weight and got self-worth.
Self-worth. Yeah, a big difference. And that's like kind of what we said when I put that Instagram post out the other day. You know, weight loss surgery doesn't change the relationship. The relationship's always the same. It just helps show the cracks.
That's right.
Because I had literally a conversation with someone today about it, and they were justifying, you know, that they weren't happy with where they were at, but they were justifying it because they're like, oh, but I need, you know, that support for this. And I'm like, yeah, but it's kind of like you can't hold into a relationship. You know, you do that all the time when you have a relationship. You kind of go, once I get past this point, then I'll think about
Yeah.
separating. You know, everyone does that, and it's kind of like we'll get past this, and then we'll separate. You know, if you're not happy in a marriage or relationship, whatever it is, you got to think of forever's a long time to be miserable.
And that's exactly what I was doing too. I was like, oh, we've got this festival coming up. We'll just get through this festival and then I'll break up with him. And it was like, oh, but before that festival, we booked the next thing. And then it got to the point where I was buying a house with him. And once you buy a house, that's a 30-year contract. Like, that's a long time.
After I have my second kid, I might think about it. Was everyone pretty supportive around you, Anna, once you decided to have weight loss surgery? Like internal and external too?
I, at the start, like even my Instagram account, I didn't start that till, I don't know, like towards the end of that year, 2019, because I was really nervous about sharing the journey, only because I was worried that people would be so judgmental about it. So it took me a little while to even start an Instagram page and sort of reach out and connect with the community, because I did feel after I'd had weight loss surgery, I didn't really have anyone to talk to. I didn't really know anyone that had it before, and it was a little bit isolating. So that's why I initially started like my Instagram page, for example. But in saying that, my family like were super supportive. They were just like, if that's what you want to do, it's your life, and we support you, and we want you to, you know, feel healthy and feel good. And they knew the struggles that I'd had with, you know, up and down, you know, putting on the weight and losing it, and how it was literally all consuming. So my family was so supportive. And actually since then, my mum had weight loss surgery. So she obviously, I inspired her to do it, because she was also really, you know, afraid to delve into that. But she had surgery in November last year. So that's, you know, they were really supportive. As I said, my husband at the time was really supportive. Sorry, guys, my dog just turned up. If you can see him.
Hey, Papa.
Special guest.
My special guest, his name's Oreo.
Hi, Oreo.
With him, so he's jumped up on the couch. But yeah, I told a couple of people at work, obviously, because I needed to take like 3 weeks off. My work was really supportive, so there were no issues there. And then I'd only really told some very close friends. And the ones that I had told were the ones that I knew wouldn't question me about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I sort of like told the people that I knew would support me, because, you know, there's people out there that would be like, why are you doing that? Oh, that's the easy way out. You know, why can't you skim and eat less like everybody else? You know, rah, rah, rah. And I just didn't want to go into it with people. I didn't want to have to explain or convince anyone that I deserved this or that this was the best option for me. So I just decided not to share it. But then as the months went on, people would ask questions. You know, when you lose 10 kilos, people don't really ask too many questions about it. But I went in there at 101, and I now sit like between 60 and 62, and I'd already lost like over 20 kilos prior to the surgery. By the time I'd gotten to like 20 kilos lost post-surgery, people were starting to ask questions.
Yeah.
Like, you've lost, you know, 40-odd kilos now. You're looking pretty different. What are you doing to lose weight?
Yeah.
You know? And then I thought, you know what, Anna, you know, you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. Just own it. I had weight loss surgery. This is what I did. My stomach's really full now. And even, you know, when you go out with friends to eat and that sort of stuff, initially I'd be nervous that they'd be like, why aren't you eating? You know, you're eating like a bird. And then I was just like, it's just easier for me to tell people so they don't wonder why I'm not eating as much, you know? Yeah. So I was just, if people would ask, I'd tell them. Otherwise I wasn't, you know, just going out saying.
And you didn't get any critics or anyone that, you know, did come up against you with it?
No, not until my marriage broke down. That's when I think I noticed a bit of that, where people would be like, there was a lot of, you know, I heard things along the grapevine.
Yeah, you do.
You know, people tell you like, oh, did you know such and such has been saying this or that? And I try and stay away from that sort of gossip and negativity. But, you know, a lot of the narrative from people that I'd heard, you know, along the grapevine was, she's left him because she lost the weight, and, you know, the surgery is the reason. So that was the only real negativity that I sort of got around that. But other than that, I can't. My family's phenomenal, and my very close friendship group has been so supportive. So
because that was one of the things I scrolled through your Instagram and tried to catch up on everything about you and stuff like that. And you've got amazing food porn, by the way. Like your
feed makes me hungry.
Yeah, literally, it's a delicious feed. But you don't share. Massive foodie. Yeah, well, that's good. You haven't lost that. But I did notice that you didn't share a lot of personal stuff. Is that because you don't want to merge the two together, or is there a reason behind that?
To be honest, I probably share a lot more of the personal stuff on my story because I post on my story quite a lot. So I'll often have chats or bits and pieces on that, or postings on what I'm doing in life or what I'm struggling with. But, yeah, I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. I think I've just, because it's been mainly a food feed, and because I'm so far, I say so far, but like I'm 2 years post-op now, I feel like, I don't really have, there's not much interesting happening in that space.
Yeah.
Like around, I can't be like, oh, new weight loss goal or whatever.
Yeah, new NSV. Yeah.
But that sort of touches on what we were... That sort of touches on what we were talking about with Zash last week, and what we sort of delved into quite a bit in last week's episode, is that like what you portray on Instagram, we've got to realize that people obviously look up to us and go, Anna's done so well, and why has she done so well? And it's quite clear in your feed, it's because you do put so much time into nutrition and your food and healthy eating and that sort of thing. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You throw in photos of your before and afters and that sort of thing, but your feed actually shows why you are a success, because you do put so much thought, and obviously you're a psychologist as well, so you've obviously got the mental health side down pat. We presume you have the mental health side down pat, but then also you share that you are a massive foodie, which is a great point to point out too, because you can still be a foodie after weight loss surgery, but you look through your feed, and if you do gain a few kilos, you could quite quickly look at your feed and be like, oh, you know what, that's because, for the last 3 weeks, all I've been eating is carbs, or my portions, So I think it's a good thing. Like I use social media as an accountability tool. Absolutely. And I think yours is quite obvious in the fact that, you are just showing what you eat and what you do and that sort of thing. So I think that's a credit to you.
Thank you. And to be honest, a reason why I started it, one, was to connect with people that had a similar, experience to me, so I could learn from them, because I knew that I wasn't the first or the last person to have weight loss surgery, and I really wanted to learn from people who had already been through this. And the big thing for me was food and nutrition, because that was my crutch. That's what I struggled with. And what I hear from a lot of people that contact me or send me messages is that they like the fact that I keep it so real with my food, and that I focus on balance, and that I actually show them how much I'm eating. I've got like a couple of highlights on there with like his and hers, meals, like portion sizes, all sorts of different things, snacks, recipes that I cook, that sort of thing. Because for me, it's a bit of a creative avenue as well, because I do a lot of the psych stuff and the talking and dealing with the issues at work all day.
Exactly right.
So I wanted to sort of not have that come into my personal life into like my Instagram as much, because I want to be able to enjoy the other things that are outside of work. Yeah. And I wanted to really show people that you can have balance with your food, and you don't have to go back into that real unhealthy diet mentality, and that you can enjoy different foods in moderation, and you can really focus on nourishing your body, and that it's totally okay to have a piece of cake or a cocktail or whatever it might be. And that doesn't mean that you need to punish yourself for that, or it means you can't eat the next day, or it means you need to vomit up your food, or whatever the things, the ways that we deal with that. So I want that to be really loud and clear on my page. And also the biggest thing for me is to keep myself accountable, and also to give me ideas, because I'm sure you guys know what it's like. Like, you get sick of cooking and eating the same stuff all the time. And I can scroll through my own feed and be like, oh yeah, I used to make that snack 3 months ago that I forgot about.
Well, I'm literally going to use you as my inspiration for food now, because I was just saying the other day, I'm at a rut. Like, I used to be so into my cooking, and obviously now, like, I've been doing a lot more events now that COVID's over, and I'm not finding the time, and in my brain, I was like, I'm going to go back to using HelloFresh. But then I was looking at your page today, and you're using HelloFresh as well. But I was I'm gonna go back and scroll through all of your recipes and get some inspiration, because you've got some amazing recipes on there. So thank you. I'm going to use you as my food inspiration.
Food inspiration.
You're welcome.
Talking about your job, Have you found that since, like, obviously you've been doing psychology for quite a while, have you found that since going through this journey, your approach as being a psychologist has changed a little bit? Like, have you found that it's affected your way of thinking and how you, relate to different patients at all?
I think I've got a twofold answer for that. Initially, as I said earlier, what sparked my interest in psychology was trying to process all of my own experiences when I was young, and knowing that I wanted to help people and I wanted to help children or, young adolescents not, experience or know how to deal with a lot of what I'd experienced. And then as I got older and studied psychology and started seeing patients, it really humbled me, and it really taught me how to have true empathy and compassion for our fellow humans, and you really learn to understand that everybody has a story and everybody has gone into whatever the struggle is. And I've said that I focus on trauma and addiction. So, the majority of the clients or the patients that I see have addiction-related issues. So when I'm talking about addiction, for me, that's drug and alcohol addiction. Mm-hmm. That's what I work with and I specialise in. And being a psychologist itself taught me, and listening to other people and being really, invested in their stories and really working with them towards change taught me how to, put a lens or a spotlight on myself and really, made me check myself a lot, around the things that I was doing or the way I was behaving or what I was valuing or the way I thought about things. Maybe how I might have been judging other people's circumstances, or, it really opened me up and really taught me to be compassionate for, our fellow humans. And then post-surgery, I think to be honest, I'm not sure my job as much has changed, because I think I learned that more from my clients. I think my clients have just taught me so much about just the human condition and how we can experience some real adversity, and sometimes that adversity is quite horrendous and scary, but still come out, and just the resilience of humans. I think I'm just completely empowered by that because of the people that I see. Like, my clients empower me every day. But in saying that, post-surgery, I think it's just, again, taught me to show myself compassion, and that we all deserve to be heard, and we all deserve to be happy, and we all deserve to feel loved and cared for, and that it's totally okay to ask for help. I think that's probably what I've learned post-surgery from a psychological perspective, rather than how I treat my clients, because I value them so much and I learn so much from them. But I've learned a lot more how to show myself compassion and know that failure, isn't, or when we fall backwards, or when we make mistakes, or when we make errors, that's not a failure. That we can pick ourselves back up, and that to always look for the silver lining, or look for the lessons in the things that didn't go our way. I think that's what's really I've learned from surgery, is that just because something didn't go the way I wanted it to go doesn't mean I failed. And
as long as you're willing to take the lessons away from it, I think that's the biggest thing. No failure is a failure if you take the lessons away from it. It's just a stepping stone to get you to where you need to be. But
it's funny because mental health is one of the most things that come up the most whilst we're talking to people. Like, everybody during your weight loss surgery journey, everybody has to deal with some sort of mental health issues. And I definitely think the position that you were in prior to surgery, obviously being a psychologist, I think that's definitely you've set yourself up to be successful in that way, which is definitely kudos to you, and it's definitely a foot in the door for you. So that's really, really good in your sense, I guess.
Yeah, you have the tools that you can use to, better establish what got you to where you are. Speaking of which, if you could take yourself back to any point in time, where would it be, and what would you tell yourself in that point of time? So if you could go back to see you at any point throughout your history and tell that person one thing.
Not just in lost surgery.
No,
you could have told your 3-year-old self.
Yeah, 3 years old, 4 years old. You can go back and you can sit down with that person and you can give them one bit of information that will help guide you in the right direction. I know, huge question. What would it be?
Birth.
Birth. Don't look left. No.
I'm just going with the first thing that came into my head, and I hope I can articulate it because I've got a lot of thoughts. But essentially I couldn't put a year on it. I would just go back to me as like a young girl when I was, really, really struggling and really spending most of my days, feeling afraid and scared and anxious. I think I would go back to that little girl and just tell her that everything's going to be okay and that you're stronger than you think you are and you have all the tools inside you to pick yourself up and that you can achieve anything and that you can work through anything. That's definitely what I would tell my younger self. And as an adult, I reflect on, how lucky I've been. I'm the first person in my whole family to finish high school, let alone go to uni and have a, what you would call a, professional career as such. I don't know how else, to sort of feel like sense. That. My family, are such hard workers and have a super hard work ethic, which they've instilled in me from a really young age. And they didn't have the opportunities that I had, to be able to continue to study or continue with education for a multitude of reasons. So I've continued to tell myself all through my life, and if I was that little girl, I would reassure her that you can achieve freaking anything. And what's happening to you now is not going to define you for the rest of your life. That cloud that is around you, those voices in your head that make you feel, that narrative, I guess, in your head that of who you were grown up, what you were told you were as a child is not who you need to become. And you have control over that. And every single day you can wake up and make a change. Even if it's a tiny little change, you have control. You can be in control and you can change your narrative. And that's something that I've continued to tell myself through my whole journey, and especially as an adult, that, I can achieve anything. It might not happen tomorrow.
I love what you just said about how what's happening right now does not define you as a person. I love that. That's, because it doesn't matter what is happening right now. You can always change tomorrow, so what's happening right now.
You can't control the past, you can control the future.
Yeah. I reckon I tell myself that what other people think of you, like going back to being quite young as well. Like I obviously got bullied quite a lot at school and all that sort of thing, and I cared so much what other people used to think of me. So I think I'd go back and tell myself that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what other people think of you. It's how you carry yourself and how you think of yourself that is going to get you through in life. Because if you go into a situation and you've got no confidence and you don't believe in yourself because of what other people have told you, you're probably not going to succeed as well as what you could have if you went into that situation with confidence and with you're sure of yourself. So that's what I'd tell myself. Yeah,
that's true. Because if you're willing to sell yourself for bottom dollar, someone's going to pay bottom dollar. But if you're willing to sell yourself for top prices, then someone's going to pay above that. It was funny that when you said, when you went back to that point in history, you were that person that you needed at that point. But now you are that person that, it's just funny how you have become the person for you who you were in the past now. So like you've become that person who, if someone's going through what you went through at a younger age, they can turn to you and now have this discussion with you and, hopefully help them through whatever they're going through. So I think that's really good. It shows that, your history gives you tools to set you on the course where you need to be. So you now are helping people because of what happened to you in the past. So I think that's a really powerful message because it's like pronounced showing that whatever's happening to you today can set you up on the right path for the future if you're willing to let it. We spoke about what you would tell yourself going forward. But yourself in the past, what would you tell someone, like, because obviously you'd have a lot of tools in your arsenal, being a psychologist, everything like that. Anyone that's setting on this journey of weight loss surgery, do you have any advice that you would give to someone early on or just starting off on this process?
Look, I would say a few things. Even if they're thinking about it, and people do ask me these sorts of questions and people come into my, inbox a lot and say, I'm thinking about it, but I don't know if it's right for me or whatever. The thing that I always say to people is at the end of the day, you need to do what you and your life. Try and zone out all the other voices, what other people are telling you need to do, what feels right for you and what do you think will help you get to your goals. You know, you can look on Instagram and you can think that weight loss surgery is, you know, the be all and end all, and all these people are super successful, and so that's going to work for me. But the reality is people only show a very small portion of their lives on Instagram, you know. So the reality is you need to really think through whether this is something that you know, that you want to do, and that if you do decide to go ahead, it's totally normal to be afraid. It's totally normal to feel scared. It's totally normal to go back and forth and think about, you know, do I want to do this or not? And I think the biggest, you know, lessons for me after surgery, and the things I repeat to people all the time, is you're absolutely going to wake up on days and think, what the fuck have I done? Did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
You're definitely going to think, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to eat again, you know, and you're going to really struggle psychologically with how much food you can consume. That's normal, you know. You're going to struggle with that emotional battle, and that, should I have done this? That's normal. You know, you're going to worry about whether or not you're eating enough, or whether you're eating too much, or whether you've stretched your sleeve. Totally normal. You know, like if I could say to anyone, like, don't just, you know, ride the wave.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. The amount of people that come in and say to me, Anna, I haven't lost weight in 3 weeks. Am I eating too much?
I'm on
and
a
I
stall.
have to say, look, like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian, but this is what I will say to you. Stalls are normal. These things are normal. Focus on your protein, get your fluids in, nourish your body, trust the process. You know, every single person is different. Every body is different. Male and female makeup is different. Our hormones are different. Our chronic health conditions are different. Our psychology is different. The medications we're on is different. Everyone's different. You know?
Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just ride your own journey.
Like, that's what I'm trying to articulate. Don't compare yourself. You're on your own journey. Do the best you can, one day at a time. You know?
Totally.
So we've spoken about past Anna. Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What are your goals and aspirations?
Oh, that is such a hard one. 5 years.
5 years. Not 2, not 3, 5. 5.
Okay, so what am I? I'm turning 35 in March, so I'll be 40. Okay, so, well, I would like to think that at 40, I am, like, still really settled in my career. Like, I'm very career, like, I have a lot of aspirations career-wise. And I currently work in, like, the criminal justice system with high-risk behaviours. So I think I still want to be there in 5 years. I'm really enjoying that type of work. So career-wise, I'd like to have some more responsibility, I think, in that space, and really working towards programs or interventions that can help reduce, you know, behaviours around reoffending. That's something I'm really passionate about, because I think that
love that.
If we can address why people are doing what they do, you know, we can make significant differences, and then that flows on to the community and women and children as well. You know, I think if I can keep doing that work, I'd feel really accomplished in that space, because I'm really passionate about that. In my personal life, I'd really like to I'd like to think that I'm still you know, maintaining my weight in a really positive, healthy way, and I'm very aware that my weight will fluctuate over time, and then that's normal, but that I'm still prioritising my health. That's what I'd really like to see in 5 years' time, that, you know, I've avoided, you know, medical conditions that I either had or was on the cusp of getting. Like, I had high blood pressure and was a borderline, you know, like diabetic and things like that, and, you know, polycystic ovarian syndrome, like all of those things. I don't have any of those things now. So I'd like to think that at 40, you know, I'm still quite healthy. And, you know, I would like to have a baby, but, you know, we'll see how that goes.
5 years. You know, you don't have
plenty of time to practice.
I feel like, you know, obviously, the boyfriend walked past before in the back of the video, and I think, like, you're kind of holding back a little bit of, like, I don't want to scare him off, so I'm not going to mention, like, marriage or babies or anything like that. Yeah, so, you know, 5 years is a long time. It's a long time.
I think one of my biggest things was I always wanted to be a healthy mum, you know. And
totally.
my niece, I have a niece that's also my goddaughter. She's 5 years old and she's the absolute love and light of my life. And I credit her for a lot of the light bulb moments that have come for me in the last few years. And I think I just always wanted to be a healthy mum, and I was always really aware in the first few years of her life how difficult it was to carry her around, to run around with her, to go for walks or do activities and things with her. And I used to think to myself, like, I want to be the mum that can, go on the slides or go for the runs or the walks or do all the arts and crafts and activities and go on the, roller coaster and do all that sort of stuff. And that became really hard at my heaviest weight. Even just around the shopping centre for 15 or 20 minutes was hard,
Without getting too personal, you did touch on the fact that you were sort of borderline polycystic ovarian syndrome. That obviously you said you don't have it anymore. Have they said to you prior to like now that would play havoc in you being able to fall pregnant in the future at all? Or
yeah. So I was, I think, 19 when I was diagnosed, and one of the first things that the specialist had said to me was that it would impact my fertility. Mm-hmm. So that was a really big pill to swallow at a young
19.
age. And at that time, as I said, my memory is that I was about 88 kilos at that stage, and obviously I put on a lot more weight than that over the years. And that was always in the back of my head that, Anna, this is impacting you, and that this is going to make it harder for you to have kids. But that was just another pressure that I would push away, and comfort with food, So I have in the recent months, been seeing like a specialist gynecologist, knowing that I'm 34 turning 35, and I want to make sure that my body is as healthy as possible so that if, I do go down the road of trying to fall pregnant in the future, that everything is, I'm giving myself the best chance, but also exploring whether or not, I should freeze eggs or do anything like that so that I still have that option in the future. So that's been going really well, which is a positive. So it's just, exploring the options and, like I said, really putting myself first and my health first, and making sure that I have every opportunity, giving myself every opportunity to achieve those goals. It might not happen, a child might not be in my future, but
that's it.
I would like to
give yourself the best possible chance. Yeah, 100%. If you give yourself the best possible chance, you can never be like, well, I could have done this differently.
And the last question that we have for you this evening is, besides the obvious of weight loss has changed your life, what is one thing that's changed your life since weight loss surgery that you really didn't expect?
I think my life doing a complete 180. Like, if you'd asked me whether or not I would still be in my marriage, whether I would have changed to a completely different, while I'm still working as a psychologist, I'm working in a very different area to what I was working before. If you'd asked me if I was going to be moving house, I was sure that I was going to be in that house for many, many years, let alone be moving into an apartment in the city by myself rather than out in the burbs in a home that I owned. So much has changed for me. My work, my marriage, my personal life, my friendship group, like, completely changed post my relationship breakdown. So there's been a lot of
by one you mean like your whole
your
life
entire
is
life.
just, really, when you look back on it, a lot has changed for you aside from the weight loss.
But I think that's a good thing to point out too, because a lot of people get told that it's life-changing surgery and nobody really kind of like comprehends that. And I know for myself, my life has done a whole 180 as well. Like I was saying to somebody the other day, like I go trail running for fun now. Like I couldn't even run 100 meters, and now I spend my entire lifetime running and doing triathlons and doing, I'm no longer with my partner anymore. I'm living in a completely different, and not to say that that's going to happen to everybody, but it is life-changing. There's certain aspects of, and that's why I like to ask this question, is because there's, everybody thinks about I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to get fit, I'm going to get healthy. But there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, broaden your horizons, think outside the box, and just think like, it helps you analyze the situation you're in. It helps you kind of like take yourself out of it and like give yourself a bit of like, power to change things that you wouldn't have changed in the past. So I think that's a really powerful thing.
it's just a massive psychological shift. I think that's definitely, I didn't
100%.
expect. You know, the physical transformation was sort of to be expected, but everything else, if you'd asked me 12 months ago, I would never guess. I would have honestly never guessed.
No, you would have laughed at them. Laughed them in the face. I say that all the time. I would have laughed in people's faces if they told me I would be doing what I do now.
Well, I used to be a graphic designer, and now look at us. We're hosting like Bari Banter, and we're doing 5K Your Way, like just completely 360.
Yeah, no,
180.
it's amazing what this amazing tool can offer to you in the ways of not just weight loss surgery, but just broaden your horizons, open your eyes, and move outside the box you're living in. What did Azash said? She says sometimes you don't have to stay in the box; you can take the lid off. So, I think that's really appropriate.
Put things in, take things out, just live outside the box.
I like that a lot. Well, thank you for sitting down with us and dropping some of your amazing knowledge on us. And if you ever feel like you want to change to bariatric surgery psychologist, I wouldn't mind sitting on your couch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
I love that your eyes just opened and was like, I might just double book that one.
Are you free at 9 o'clock on Monday?
Yeah, I know. It's funny because I've spoken to my best friend about that. She's also had weight loss surgery, and we've talked about like maybe one day we'll go into doing. She's a counsellor by profession, so we said maybe one day we'll open our own little practice and just focus and specialise in bariatric patients. So you never know. It could be there in 5 years. Who knows?
There's definitely a niche for it. That's for sure. There's definitely
and you definitely have a one up in the market because coming from somebody who's actually been through the experience, I think people would relate.
Yeah. I think she's clearly processed it. I think that's what this whole conversation. You know why you are where you are now, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that and understand. And they'll start going, oh yeah, actually that did play a part in why I ended up in the path I am now. So
absolutely.
And you're definitely a very compassionate and very caring person. That's definitely come across this afternoon. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thanks so much.
No, but that is another episode anyway, guys, of Bari Banter. Well, yes, that is another episode of Bari Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.